It was just another program. A friendly face, a cheerful voice, teaching families how to cook together. But behind the apron and the laughter was something else. Something watching, something hungry. What aired that night wasn't a recipe for dinner. It was a recipe for the end. Welcome to the kitchen. The jingle is cheerful, the kind that could get stuck in your head. Bright piano keys, a bounce of strings. A syrupy female chorus singing, "Let's cook together. Let's cook with love." The curtain pulls back. The set is dazzling. Yellow counters, red cabinets, copper pots hanging on the wall. A perfect kitchen, straight from the 1970s. Everything sparkles under studio lights. The camera pans to the host. He beams at the lens. His apron has cartoon spoons and forks dancing across it. His hair is slicked, his teeth clean. He looks like he stepped right out of an old magazine ad. "Hello, my little chefs," he announces, clapping his hands together with exaggerated excitement. "I hope you're ready for a meal you'll never forget." A laugh track bursts out, far too loud for the simple greeting. The sound lingers, echoing unnaturally, like it was recorded in a cavern. The host lifts a wicker basket onto the counter. "Today, we're making a special family recipe, one that's close to my heart." He pulls out a tomato and places it carefully on the cutting board. With a practiced flourish, he slices it in half. The juice spills out thick, almost black. It dribbles across the board, leaving dark trails that soak into the wood. The camera zooms in slightly. The seeds glisten like tiny eyes. "Always slice carefully," he says, smiling too wide, his fingers perilously close to the knife's edge. Another laugh track erupts, as though he's told a joke. Next, he hauls up a slab of meat wrapped in brown paper. As he unwraps it, the audience claps and cheers. The meat quivers, twitching against the counter, as if alive. "Look at that marbling," he says proudly. The knife slams down with a wet crack. The sound is wrong, not just flesh, but bone. The screen flickers, too static for a second, and in that moment, the host's face blurs. Eyes hollow, black pits, mouth stretched unnaturally wide. When the picture clears, he's smiling again, as though nothing happened. Perfect. Just perfect. The camera cuts to a wide shot of the counter. The jars of spices seem strange now. One looks like it contains teeth. Another swirls with something alive, tiny shapes wriggling against the glass. The host ignores it, moving on. But what really makes this dish shine is the secret ingredient, a family heirloom, if you will. The audience gasps with delight. The sound doesn't match the visuals. It's too loud. Too many voices, as though hundreds more people are crammed into the studio than the camera can show. The host crouches below the counter. There's a wet dragging sound. When he rises, he's holding something wrapped in a stained white cloth. It drips steadily, pattering against the linoleum. He places it gently on the counter and pats it like it's a pet. His smile never falters. "You'll only find this in the freshest kitchens," he says warmly. The cloth shifts slightly. Something inside twitches. A pale finger slips free from the fold. The nail is torn, the skin limp. The audience claps thunderously, laughter erupting like a tidal wave. The host's grin widens until it's too wide, stretching into something inhuman. Now that's what I call fresh. The static swallows the screen for 2 full seconds before the broadcast steadies again. The host places the severed hand carefully next to the chopped vegetables and the slab of meat. He rubs his hands together in delight. "Now, little chefs," he says softly, leaning toward the lens. "Are you ready to cook with me?" The laugh track cuts off abruptly, leaving only the hum of static beneath his words. The camera zooms on his eyes. They are wet, shining, almost feverish. He doesn't blink. The screen cuts to black. The recipe? The screen snaps back from black to the kitchen set. The cheerful theme music plays faintly, distorted like a warped tape. The host stands over the counter, sleeves rolled up, his smile fixed and unblinking. "Now that we have our special ingredients ready," he chirps, voice smooth and theatrical. "It's time to put everything together." The audience claps, though it sounds layered, echoing in strange ways, like multiple recordings stitched over one another. The host takes the knife again. He dices the tomato, each slice releasing more of that tar-like juice. It coats the board, dripping onto the floor. He chops the twitching slab of meat next. Every cut makes the camera shudder slightly, as though the lens itself recoils, Consistency is everything, he says, grinning. Chop too rough, and it loses its texture. Chop too fine, and it becomes mush. He pauses, holding the knife just above his own hand, fingers stretched out across the board. For one long moment, it looks like he might slice into himself. The audience titters nervously, laughter bleeding into static. Then, with a wink, he lowers the blade back to the meat. The host sweeps the ingredients into a large ceramic bowl. When the knife scrapes across the cutting board, the sound doesn't match. It screeches like metal on bone. Now, for the seasonings, he says cheerfully. The camera cuts to the row of jars on the shelf. They're clearer now. One jar is filled with teeth, some with fillings still in them. Another jar holds a cloudy fluid where something pale wriggles lazily. A smaller jar is stuffed with human hair, pressed down so tightly the lid bulges. The host plucks the hair jar without hesitation. A pinch of tradition, he says, sprinkling strands into the bowl. Then he tips the jar of cloudy fluid. The liquid hisses as it hits the mixture, releasing a foul steam. The laugh track roars, louder than ever. Some voices sound distorted, others childlike, all overlapping in a frenzy of approval. The host stirs the bowl with exaggerated cheer. The camera zooms in. Inside, the chopped vegetables and meat churn together with the hand, fingers bending and cracking as they mix. The spoon grinds against bone. He lifts a heaping spoonful. The mix drips in thick, red globs. His eyes glint unnaturally as he tastes it. For a moment, his jaw seems to unhinge. The spoon vanishes into his mouth too easily, swallowed whole. His throat bulges grotesquely as he swallows. He closes his eyes, voice dropping low and tremulous. Delicious dot, just like Mother used to make. The audience claps and cheers. But beneath the clapping, something else creeps through the speakers. A low chant, distorted and layered. Eat, eat. The host sets the spoon down and wipes his mouth with the cloth that once wrapped the severed hand. A smear of blood stains his cheek. He doesn't notice. Cooking is about love, he says, his tone suddenly softer, almost intimate. It's about feeding the ones you care for. It's about making sure they never go hungry. The camera wobbles. For a moment, the set looks different. The bright wallpaper is gone, replaced with damp plaster streaked with black mold. The counters are swollen with rot. Flies buzz faintly in the air. Then it flickers back to the pristine set. The host smiles as though nothing changed. Now, he says, lifting the bowl, our recipe is almost ready for the oven. He sets it down on the counter, but the camera lingers. The mixture shifts on its own, bubbling like it's alive. One of the severed fingers twitches and claws weakly at the rim of the bowl before sinking back under. The host laughs, though it sounds more like a bark. Don't worry, it always settles. The audience explodes in hysterical laughter. A single voice shrieks above the rest, a sound that isn't amusement but agony. The laugh track drowns it out. The host leans closer to the camera, his eyes bloodshot now, pupils dilated to the point of swallowing the iris. He whispers, "You're not just watching. You're a part of this now. Don't turn away. Don't change the channel. The kitchen needs you." The camera zooms tight on his face. His smile stretches, lips trembling as though it's painful to hold. Static crawls up the edges of the screen. The screen cuts to black. Dinner is served. Camera zooms in on the finished dish under a silver cloche. Host grinning wide. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Dinner is served. Dramatic music hits as the host lifts the lid. Instead of a perfect meal, the dish is smoking, bubbling, and making a faint, gurgling noise. Co-host, guest, horrified. That looks like it's still alive. Host forcing a smile, freshness you can feel, just like Grandma used to make. If Grandma worked in a haunted laboratory, they cut into it with a knife, it squirts across the plate like a geyser. The audience laugh track roars. Co-host hesitant, holding a fork. Do we really have to taste this? Host already shoving a forkful in? Of course. That's the final test. Presentation may be questionable, but taste is everything. They both take a bite. The host's eyes water instantly, while the co-host starts fanning their mouth. Co-host gasping. It's nuclear. The lights flicker. The dish begins to hiss loudly. A little explosion of sauce splatters the camera lens. Host covered in sauce, weak grin. And that's how you make dinner. Simple, easy, unforgettable. Mostly because your stomach will never forgive you. Outro jingle kicks in with text on screen. Tune in next time for the cooking show, where disaster is always on the menu. They say no one remembers turning that channel on. But once you saw it, you couldn't look away. The smile, the laughter, the feast. They called it a cooking show, but it wasn't food being served. It was us. And in the end, the kitchen always needs more ingredients.